Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining, everybody. My name is Jeff, and today we're going to be talking about the secondary market. There was a time where the bourbon secondary market was a huge part of the whiskey culture in general. And while the secondary market hasn't completely disappeared, I must say it has narrowed, at least my view of it. It seems like fewer and fewer bottles are offering the flippers equity in those bottles, which is thus resulting in them hoarding less, which is resulting in those bottles being on the shelf more often for people to buy. I'm even seeing those bottles actually even hang on the shelf. So not only are they not being bought by the flippers, they're not being bought by the general audience sometimes too. But even still, there are still certain brands that command a high price on the secondary market. And I've been seeing some examples out there that I really wanted to highlight in this video, and not only highlight what is happening with the prices on the secondary market, but also provide some alternative pours that I think are just as strong and more readily available. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right. Well, thank you for joining, everybody. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe and leave a comment. Really helps the channel grow. And if you're interested about following us more here at Hello Again Whiskey Friends, there are links in the description to our private Facebook group or our Patreon, both of which you can join for free. Though if you do choose to support us on Patreon, we really appreciate your support. And that's also a way to get first priority on our barrel picks. Now, in terms of the secondary market, I'm not going to come out and be anti-secondary market. I'm not going to have that spin on things. I don't engage with the secondary market, neither as a seller or a buyer. There are times in my life when I did engage with it, and there are times in my life where I had fun playing fireballs. But for now, I am okay with sticking to mainly drinking the barrel picks that we get for this channel or across from our various community friends. Really are some of the best and reasonably priced whiskeys that I've ever gotten my hands on the entire time I've been in this hobby. So why not just lean into that? But even though I see the secondary market slowly diminishing, it is still there, and it's almost created a certain chasm where, yes, there aren't like random things being traded all the time. Like there was a time where Weller Reds, the Weller Antiques, was almost like a currency in and of itself to trade for everything else. And I used to see random store picks from all over the country. Maybe it was like a Russell store pick that would just be like fireball, fireball, fireball. Now I mostly just see the most sought after older whiskeys, the biggest height bottles, the bottles that have, just a few thousand in their release. They're out there on secondary and they are going for crazy numbers. So yes, like the middle market on secondary, all the bottles that were going for 100, 200, like those all diminished. Now it's like everybody's just shooting for home runs with like 250, 450, $1,000 price tags on some of these bottles. Now, I do talk to people that engage with the secondary market. And even though I come out with some of these arguments of being for or against it, or even the alternatives that I'm about to give you on some of the things that I'm seeing out there, some people just don't care. Like they just kind of look at me like, Jeff, I don't have the time to do the hunting. And I don't look at it any differently than like paying my Uber driver or my DoorDash a tip for bringing me the convenience of bringing me the food or getting me to the place I'm trying to get. Like I'm paying up for the convenience and there is a finder's fee on that and I am fine with it. And it's not on me to tell anybody what to do with their money. But at this point, in order to get something that's say a age-stated Jack Daniels or the recent Wild Turkey Gold Foil, you either got to be tight with a store owner, or go out there and engage with the secondary market. And personally, I just choose not to have those whiskeys and just to move on with my life. But for others, they got to have those bottles. I get it. I used to feel that all the time too. But for some of these, I don't think I would pay $350 at retail, let alone the $700 that it's going for on secondary. But there are recent examples with the prices that kind of blew my mind. And some of these aren't even like the higher price bottles that I've been talking about so far. Like in my mind, these are somewhat regular bottles that are just starting to go crazy on the secondary market. And I think there are alternatives out there that everyone else can easily get as well. So as we go through these examples, if you have other alternatives, leave those in the comments too with the price that you pay for them. Now, some of these bottles I don't have myself, and I'm not going to pull up like Facebook posts and out anybody on these prices. So I'll do more Google imaging if I don't have the bottle, but we'll talk about what I'm seeing that is actually from different posts. So let's start out with one that everybody is pretty darn familiar with. And that is the E.H. Taylor 4 grain. Now, what's crazy in my mind is that I have been seeing these go for somewhere between $350 to $400 on the secondary market. And this is the 2026 batch of the 4 grain. Now, when I really started getting heavily into whiskeys, I mean, the 4 grain, the OG release from like 2017, I mean, that was like the holy grail of whiskey for whatever reason back then. And I remember the secondary prices on that being like 400, $500 and thinking people were crazy back then to spend that much. But Buffalo Trace recently released this brand again. This is now, I think, the third batch of 4 grain, also the youngest of all the batches. But the secondary prices, they picked up right where they left off, and people are flipping these for 350, $400. And retail on these really wasn't bad. $79.99. So that's quite the upcharge here. Now, this mash bill originally started more as an experiment for Buffalo Trace, combining their corn, rye, wheat, and malted barley into a single expression. The 2026 edition is 10 years old, and then the proof on it is bottle and bond, 100 proof. I got to try this when we did our Backbone bourbon picks recently in Indiana, thanks to our good friend Top Jimmy, who brought it to our bottle share, got it from Buffalo Trace himself. And quite frankly, it was just a good sipper. Using our scoring system, I bet it would score somewhere between like an 80 to an 83 if I really got to sit down and concentrate on it. It was soft, it was delicate, had that Buffalo Trace cherry to it. Really, it came across younger than the 10 years to me. But after having it, like I was just kind of fine with the sample, and I don't even know if I'd buy it for $80 other than, or just share it with friends that are really excited about drinking the 4 grain, or just imagining they're drinking the ghost of the 4 grain release that originally came out in 2017. So for this one, I do think the secondary value of $350 to $400 is very bad. I mean, if you're going to be spending up that much, at least get like something that's worthy of being like a birthday pour. Now, this is also coming from the perspective of somebody that is a proof snob. And for someone that's not used to having 120, 130 proof whiskeys, hey, maybe this 100 proof is just right in their lane. It's their favorite thing. But that price tag is just crazy to me. Like, I can't even imagine seeing it retail and just laughing at it if I saw it on the shelf for $400 at any liquor store. It would actually diminish my respect for that liquor store if I saw it on the shelf for $400. So I was trying to think through alternatives to the 4 grain from E.H. Taylor that would keep the same spirit of that release, essentially being a 4 grain or even 5 grain release. Brands that came to mind were Frey Ranch, who has a 4 grain release. That's also about $80. Though the proof on that one's going to be like 120, 130 proof. If you're looking for something lower proof, why not just go with like even Penelope? The age statement's not always there at that 10 years, but you do get some that are lower proof, and they utilize those 4 grain mash bills. The one that I have on my shelf that I would gladly keep going to, this one costs about $100 retail. I got this one off of Sealbox, but the Dietrich Fine Whiskey Bourbon, I do talk about this one quite a bit, but it is a 5 grain whiskey. The 5th grain in this being the oats. And the one in my hand was a single barrel selected from Sealbox. Now, I know this isn't always easy to get, so I did give those other alternatives there. I would much rather sip on these than the E.H. Taylor 4 grain. The next one that I wanted to highlight here is going to be from Maker's Mark, the Star Hill Farm. Price-wise on this one, I've been seeing it go between $140 and $160 on the secondary market. And what's wild, and I guess also cool about this release, is that it is a wheat whiskey. I do feel like in recent times, last year, year and a half, wheat whiskeys are finally starting to get their due, as certain distillers have really taken some good chances and put out some good wheat whiskeys and getting this category more recognized. And Maker's Mark is going to be one of those with the Star Hill Farms release. Now, the suggested retail price on this one is $100. So again, I do have to do a little bit of the mental math here. If I were to find Star Hill Farms on an online retailer and pay $25 in shipping, you're looking at $125 to $130. So to buy it on the secondary market right now, you're essentially giving somebody 15, 20, $25 finder's fee. That's not actually crazy if you really wanted to get your hands on a Star Hill Farms. While I've gotten to try samples of this brand, I haven't owned a bottle myself. Hey, I might actually be tempted at that price. So I wanted to give kind of a balanced perspective here a little bit on these secondary prices. Sometimes they aren't necessarily crazy, crazy. You're just giving somebody a little bit of a tip for their time on finding it and being able to get it to you. And this one really was a very interesting whiskey overall, even unique for the wheat whiskey category. It contains a bunch of blended components, but that final recipe that goes into it is essentially 27% wheat, 62% malted wheat, and 11% malted barley. And I'm particularly talking about the 2026 edition with those stats. 7 to 8 years, 116 proof. And from what I remember on batch one, like I was pretty darn happy with it. Kind of sitting there between, I think it was like an 85 or an 86 on our scoring system. And if I ever see it on the shelf, I'm probably going to buy it. So how motivated am I going to be to actually have it on my shelf? Maybe if I get a sample of the 2026 version and it blows me away, hey, maybe I even play in this a little bit. But as I said off the top of this, wheat whiskeys are having a moment. And you can find some really good brands that are releasing some good wheat whiskeys. My personal recommendation as an alternative is going to be from Old Dominic, ranging in years between 6 to 7 right now. Heck, we might be getting into some 8-year single barrels by the end of the season. But this is probably my favorite wheat whiskey on the market today. Alternatively, you're looking at around $60, $65 retail for a single barrel. And if you got to find it online, add in the $20, $25, you're looking closer to $85 to $90. The other wheat whiskey from this year that stands out to me, if you can get it in your area and you like Finnish whiskeys, would be the Remus Experimental Batch 2, finished in a combination of different ports. I believe it's tawny port, white port, and then also sherry. So it's definitely finished, but it's another great wheat whiskey. So let's get into our third and final example that I wanted to highlight in this video. Let's talk about the Silver Springs Sweet Rye. I've seen these go on the secondary market for anywhere between $80 to $130. It tends to actually be based more on the proof, with people seeking the higher proof bottlings of this. Now, you never know how much you had any influence on like the momentum of things, but when I did a video back when this bottle was only $35 retail, now up at by Party Source for me, I think it's like $45 retail. I see it online sometimes for $70 retail too. So the price has been creeping up ever since I did the original review last year. But when I called this the craziest value in whiskey today, people in the comments were actually yelling at me saying, "No, Jeff, stop putting a spotlight on this thing. You're gonna make it go crazy on secondary." And I'm not like taking credit here. How much influence can we have? But getting that momentum started, we had some hand in that. Now, personally, I probably have about 15 unopened single barrels in my basement. I essentially just collected them from Party Source every time I had the opportunity. If it was $35, $40, just pick it up and stash it. Because when we had Ed Colon on our channel, he said it's not going to last forever. He doesn't have that many barrels. And once it's out, it's out. So I figured, hey, why not buy it? But all of that hype and all of that combined pressure and the fact that we're saying, hey, he's also running out, it creates this market for it. And then all of a sudden, I see it on my feed all the time. People trying to get it, sell it on secondary. And that's wild to me. Never saw that coming. Now, personally speaking, and I am certainly biased in this, but we can walk away from our Silver Springs experience very appreciative to Ed, because we got to do a single barrel of Silver Springs. We called this one Hungry Rise. It had an 80s theme here. 8 years, 128 proof. This cask is still probably the highest proof one I've ever seen. And this single barrel was just crazy, crazy delicious. So in no way am I calling this overhyped whiskey. I mean, this should never have been really $35 on the shelf anyway. $70, $80, very, very fair price for the experience that you're getting. But what makes this one unique here is going to be the mash bill. 65% rye, 20% malted barley, 15% corn. And the rumored source on this is New Riff. So I will say that's just a rumor, but we have been putting that to the test here at the channel. I have been giving Darrell and Kelsey blind samples of New Riff's malted rye, New Riff's rye, and Silver Springs over the course of the summer. And every time I give them a new riff, they call it Silver Springs. And every time I give them a Silver Springs, they call it New Riff. Thus, a clear alternative to these. If you're not able to get your hands on Silver Springs, even if they're just not in your area or whatnot, look for these. These are New Riff 6-year single barrels of their malted rye. They also have a 100 proof version that comes in a little cheaper. But if you can't get your hands on Silver Springs and you don't want to pay up on secondary, try to find these in groups that are putting these out. The one I got in my hands here is my favorite thus far from Sealbox. But those New Riff malted rye single barrels would cost you about $70, $80. So what do you think about the current state of the secondary market? Are you still engaging? Are you still utilizing it to get the whiskeys that you want to get your hands on? And at what point in all of this does a finder's fee simply get out of control? And if you have any other alternatives for the bottles that were highlighted here, let us know what they are in the comments. And just remember, while you can always find more whiskey, you can never have enough whiskey friends. So take care of those around you, and we will catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for watching. Hello again, whiskey friends, everybody. A big shout out to our amazing Patreon community. If it wasn't for you, we couldn't continue to produce the content and barrel picks week after week. And for everybody else out there, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. It really helps the channel more than you know. And we'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.